Hi, and welcome to the Screen Innovations World Headquarters. I'm Blake Backer, the Director of Sales here at Screen Innovations, and I have a great group of friends here with us to talk about two-piece projection, what I like to call the revitalization of two-piece projection. We've got my good friend Jason Palmer from Epson, Bill Birdsall from JVC, and Amy, tell me your last name again.
Escobar,
because I can never pronounce it. No. You're from our friends at Sony. Now, the reason we brought you down, and by the way, thank you for making the trip. It's a great honor to have you all
Thanks
here.
for inviting us.
I think this is going to be great for the industry as a whole because things are changing. Let's face it, two-piece projection is now available in any room of the house. We're competing directly with flat panel TVs, but it hasn't always been that way. I mean, a lot of people out there have a preconceived notion about two-piece projection. I remember the first time I saw two-piece projection, little kid at Mr. Gaddy's Pizza here in Austin, Texas, front projector with 3 giant lenses and this concave silver screen, and you could almost watch it. Unfortunately, that's a lot of the perception we still have in two-piece projection. Everybody goes to their sports bar and sees it, well, maybe not at its premium, if you will. So we've talked about the technology is evolving, and what we're seeing now is brighter projectors, higher resolution that really couldn't happen before, especially when we talk about some of the newer technologies. But before we get there, let's talk about the experience people are used to. What do you hear out there in the industry from our customers, from our dealers, as one of the more obvious objections to two-piece? Amy?
That's really a great question. So two-piece projection is going to give you a completely different experience than a large flat panel TV. When's the last time you went to a movie theater and saw a TV?
Sure.
So if you're really into the movies, two-piece projection is the way to go in terms of a large screen immersive experience.
I would agree with that. And Bill, you want to touch on that?
The only thing I could see is if you're size restricted, room restricted, as far as what you could put in there. But you could even make, in most cases, if you have a normal size room, with the way the lens flexibility is nowadays, you can get as close as 11 feet or as far back as 30 feet.
That's actually a great point, because in the day, if you place the projector, the CRT, you had an option of, on, say, a 100-inch screen to place the projector here or here. You have one inch of play. I think on the Epson 6020, gosh, you've got what, about 11 feet, 12 feet of play in a lot of cases?
For a 100-inch screen, it's a little over 9 feet to up to 23 feet. And it's funny, we have this, because we have the same issue. People are thinking back to, 10, 15 years ago when, lumens were low. There was a lot more restrictions on these projectors. Plus, they weren't 1080p or even higher resolutions. And so source material, when you blow it up to 100 inches or 120 inches, didn't look as good. Now it looks incredible at any size, and the projectors are getting brighter and brighter. But in terms of room flexibility, we have this little room. It's a 10 by 15 foot room that we travel with, and we bring it to home shows and stuff, just to show people.
I've been in that room.
You have been in that room. And we show people what projectors can be, and we turn the lights on, we turn the lights off, we open the curtains and so forth, and give them a full range of experiences. But one of the things that they're most amazed by is that they can get a 100-inch screen in this tiny 10 by 15 foot walk-in closet, and the reality is they could actually get that 100-inch screen in something that's even 33% smaller than that. So it's amazing how versatile it is. Any den, second bedroom, guest room, etc., can be a theater room. Not to mention, of course, the versatility and brightness of these projectors allow them to be in brighter ambient light.
That's true, because we see a lot of the empty nesters, where the kids go off to college, never come back, or if they do come back, now the room is now a home theater.
Right, the second bedroom, if you will.
Yes, sure. Exactly. So we see a lot of that.
So Jason, you were here a couple weeks ago. We were meeting with a dealer, and you made a great point about the customer that walks into the retailer and sees the 80-inch or 90-inch flat panel.
Yeah.
Elaborate on that a little bit.
What I've been saying, and I really feel this is true for all of us, is that I think that the rise of large flat panel TVs is actually a great thing for two-piece front projection, because a person is now thinking about, I think, when I remember I was a dealer for a while, I got my mother-in-law a 50-inch flat panel, and she was like, oh, I don't want 50 inches, it's too big. And now she's clamoring away for something larger. Now she wants 60 or 70 or so forth. People are thinking about larger TVs in their homes, in their living room, in their guest rooms, et cetera. And the reality is, if someone comes into a store and says that they want a 70-inch flat panel, what they're really saying is, I want the biggest TV I can get.
Sure.
I want 120 inches. I just don't know it exists. So if we can show them the truth, which is you can get a 120-inch image that's as bright as most panels out there and get a better experience and explain what Amy explained, that it's exponentially larger in terms of size, and it has other benefits, like it's, in the case of the zero edge screen from Screen Innovations, it doesn't have any reflection. I mean, I was trying to buy a flat panel recently, and I've got windows, and I can't buy plasma, that's for sure, because it's got a glass front. So if we can show them that there's benefits to front projection, and that it doesn't have all of these antiquated issues of like ambient light in the room and so forth, then we can get involved in this new rise of large screen flat panels and take over some of that business.
And part of that value proposition, and thank you, Amy, for doing the math, by the way, is pretty extraordinary, because even as immersed as I am in the industry, I wasn't even aware at some of the price per square inch options available to you. Why don't you touch on that subject just for a bit?
I would love to. So typically as a consumer, when you think of a 80 or 90 inch TV, and then you think of a 100 or 120 inch screen, it doesn't seem like it's that much bigger. But when in actuality, since you're talking about surface area, it is a lot bigger. In fact, the difference between a 75 and a 100 inch screen is actually going to be about 78% more surface area. And then you have to count for how much you're actually paying for that surface area. So comparing a 75 inch TV, the one that's on the market right now is going to be about $3.74 a square inch. Whereas, of course, you can get cheaper ones down to about, a little bit less than $2. But for a front projector, let's say an average $4,000 front projector and a Screen Innovations 100-inch screen, you're talking about $1.50 per square inch. So really, the value for the large screen is definitely there.
And that's absolutely true. What we were surprised to do when we started doing the math, and we've been presenting that in our presentations for almost a year now, that, for instance, any one of the projectors being talked about today in that sub $4,000 category with a Black Diamond Zero Edge, you're looking at about a $7,500 to $8,500 100-inch image. Compare that to your 80 or 90-inch TV, and that's what we were just talking about. It's actually, for the very first time, we can do two-piece projection for a more affordable price point than a flat panel TV. That's extraordinary.
Yep.
That's extraordinary. Now, what's also extraordinary is about the ease of use. Again, we kind of went back and talked a little bit about the history, but big, hard to install, that's not the case anymore. Especially each one of your companies is using lens shift technologies, and your lamp lives have extended greatly. That was one of the objections we used to get from customers all the time, is lamp lives. How many hours are we talking about? What does that, and what does that mean when it comes to, say, Epson and viewing?
Well, so, in terms of lamp life, that's true. One of the, former objections to front projection in general was, well, I have to replace my lamp, and I have to replace it often. That's really not the case anymore. I mean, our projectors are rated for roughly 5,000 hours, even in bright modes. And we have a very high lumen projector. So our projectors, the projector that's the most common projector, which is our 50-20 or 60-20 projectors, are 2,400 lumens. So they're very bright projectors, and they still last 5,000 hours on a single lamp. That's years and years and years before anybody would have to think about replacing them. And the cost of replacement is only about $299. So for $300, you can replace your lamp after about 8 years of usage. It's really not a concern anymore. And in terms of flexibility of installation, they really are pretty easy to install at this point. Certainly no harder than a 80-inch flat panel or even a 65-inch flat panel. I've heard stories, in fact, that some of these larger flat panels are particularly difficult to install. You need to metal reinforce your wall and all kinds of different things that you have to do. So no, it's actually quite easy to install a two-piece system. It's basically hanging a screen, hanging a projector. We even have projectors that have wireless HDMI, so you don't even have to run an HDMI cable.
That's a great point.
So there's tremendous flexibility in installation.
They are truly plug and play.
In fact, you did some math also, Bill. Congratulations on your math skills. About roughly an hour's worth of use was how much?
About 16 cents an hour.
16 cents an hour.
And less now that the lamps are getting less expensive, and that was based on a 2,000-hour lamp.
So even less. So, but let's say we use that 16 cents an hour. I've got 2 kids, a wife. We go to the movies, and we're spending $58 with popcorn and movies.
Oh, yeah.
So I would call my home theater experience substantially less expensive than my true cinema experience.
You can make your own popcorn.
Exactly. Well, let's move into that part of the discussion. Both JVC and Sony are both now carrying 84-inch 4K panels. That's very exciting, but as we discussed a few months ago, Amy and I did a video together talking about your 4K projector. We both agree that really 4K starts to really, if you pardon the pun, shine at about 100 and up. And with JVC's 4K technology, the same math applies. we really see that the 100-inch up to 144-inch in a 2:3:5 aspect ratio is really when you see or don't see the benefits, if you will, of 4K. Let's talk about that for a second. Now, you're doing 4K differently, but let's just talk about the technology of what is 4K. Why is that important to the two-piece projection market, Amy?
So 4K is actually increasing the resolution. 4K is equal or greater than 4 times the resolution of 1080p. And the benefit of all those extra pixels is that it reduces the amount of visual artifacts that you see. So you can't see screen door effect, you can't see jaggies. And it really comes into play within 3 picture heights. So clearly, unless if we're going to sit very close to a smaller TV, the biggest application is going to be for large panel TVs or for projection. It's allowing us to do larger screen sizes and sit closer to the screen without having those negative side effects. And
let's kind of elaborate on that, Bill, because we talked about it earlier that part of the problem was in the past was source material.
Yes.
Being, again, you're up converting. Back in the old days, we used the Faruja quadrupler to quadruple the resolution of a VCR. Even though we don't have 4K content, your projectors, both your projectors are upgrading the content
They're
to 4K.
up converting, right.
And how is that being accepted even now in the market? I mean, what is that doing for for your end users?
Well, I think once they finally saw it, and they really have to see it to believe it. I mean, it's one thing you can talk about it all day long.
Almost seeing is believing is what
That's
you're saying.
exactly correct.
Yes.
So the best thing is a demo.
Absolutely.
Nothing beats a demonstration. Because you bring them up to the screen and you say, can you show me where the pixels are? Now you're only a foot to 18 inches off the screen and you can't see any pixels. And like Amy said, there's no jagged edges. So it cleans up a lot, especially in the graphics area where you normally would get your jaggy edges. They're all gone and cleaned up.
I totally agree with you. Seeing is believing. We've done so many shootouts against other projectors, and just the amount of sharpness in the image, and not necessarily a foot or a foot and a half from the screen, but all the way back to about 3 picture heights. You can totally see just in the amount of resolution and detail and sharpness.
Yeah, and we have the ability to turn it on and turn it off just by flip of a switch.
Right.
And you can see it, like Amy just pointed out. Either you're up close or you're far away. You turn it on, you turn it off. It is a visual difference.
It's amazing, actually. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to actually work with both of your projectors at CEDIA in 2012, as well as the Epson 6010, who's been replaced by the 6020, also in our booth at CEDIA 2012. Filling different niches, but we had a really good looking booth. Thank you, guys. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
We appreciate that.
We expect the checks in the mail. Right?
Anytime now. Yeah, it's in the mail. Trust me on that one. Now, other than the 4K technology, obviously the big words or big letters in number for the last couple of years has been 3D. It's kind of came and I won't say gone, but where's 3D happening now with your respective companies? Jason, why don't you touch on that for a second?
I mean, I think 3D is still a big part of it came with a splash.
Now, actually, before you go too far, let's qualify that a bit.
It exploded.
A lot of people have been experiencing 3D on a smaller screen. It's a different experience on a larger screen.
It is, and that's what I was going to say. Is it came big with TVs pushing it and so forth, and I think then it waned a little bit when TVs. A lot of manufacturers that were promoting 3D and 32-inch flat panels realized there's not much impact here. But it didn't really go away for projectors, and that's because the projector, average size might be 120 inches. That's a truly immersive experience. I mean, people are still going to the movies to go see The Hobbit in 3D, or ever since Avatar.
Twice already.
Exactly. But you're a nerd.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
No, absolutely. And I'm a big fan of it too. And my kids are a big fan of it. People love the 3D experience. They just don't want to watch Everybody Loves Raymond on 3D and their 40-inch flat panel. So it's not that it's gone away. In the world of front projection, it's still a big story. All of our 1080p projectors and high-end projectors have 3D, and people love it. I mean, it's an amazingly immersive experience. It's got great viewing angle. People walk right up to the screen and are grabbing at the
ducking,
whatever the case may be.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it makes me feel sad because there's this demo we do of a Tahiti surfer.
The surf Tahiti, yeah.
Oh my God! And then I'm sitting in a booth at CES, showing this awesome scene in 3D of these guys surfing, and I wish I was there. But other than that,
it's almost like being there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, however, still I think one of the objections to 3D technology is the glasses. I would like to give a shout out to the JVC glasses designers. Your new line looks beautiful.
Thank you.
What do you see changing and improving in 3D technology, Bill?
Well, the glasses are a big improvement because the first ones that came out were big and clunky, and they kind of wrapped around your head and you felt very uncomfortable with them, even though they had nose guards that changed. We are on the third generation. No, really, because if you have a fat nose,
Everybody remember
you
the
need
jerk
to-
with the little thing that came off
Yeah,
the nose?
exactly. Or if you have the Band-Aid
off, back
thing.
on, right?
So they went from those big clunkers to a medium size. Now they look more like designer sunglasses. And they actually have on-off switches on them. And they're rechargeable. Before, the first generation were battery operated. They really didn't last long. Kids left them on. The dog would chew them up. You know, they are expensive. So they have gotten a little bit cheaper, and they have gotten better.
And what's Sony got going in the 3D side?
Same as we have been. It just gets better and better.
Cutting edge, though.
Exactly. Super. We're getting brighter 3D, of course, with brighter projectors. You know, brighter projectors equal brighter 3D, and that's often been a downside of 3D. Is,
It has
you know,
been.
you see how bright the 2D image is, and then you put the glasses on, you're looking at 3D, and it's, well, it's cool. It's 3D. It's also very dim. You know, and so it
Yeah, and
definitely has gotten a lot brighter.
And before, you had to sit mostly erect. You couldn't really move your head around. If you did, you know, things would change within the image.
Yep.
So now
Well-
it's a little more flexible.
Now, great story about Bill. Bill's the reason we were able to see HD content come from the Goodyear blimp. This is the guy that set up that technology. And the reason I lead into that is, what are we going to see? You know, we've all talked about sports in 3D. Where is that going? Do anybody have, are any of your companies working with the major broadcasters to do more sports and more content in 3D? out there?
Well, the big thing is having 3D cameras. 3D cameras are not inexpensive. They're very expensive. When you do a football game or any live sporting event, you have 26 cameras in a stadium, like the World Series or Super Bowl. Can you imagine 26 cameras times the amount of what it would cost for 3D cameras? So it would be quite costly to do it. Now, some of the networks, or some of them tried it, like ESPN, really wasn't a big hit yet.
But do we believe that that may be, again, a limiting factor of what the most people are seeing in size content?
I totally agree with that. I think 3D on a TV and 3D on a front projector is totally
different
different.
experience. Different.
3D on a front projector where you have life-size images, it's just so much more immersive. So I
And I
feel
will
like
say we've come out with like a 2D, 3D conversion, and it's improved quite a bit. So it increases the value proposition of 3D. So it's not just the 3D content that you have, but you can also create a real immersive experience on a large screen with, you know, any of your content, utilizing that feature.
Well, you know, we've talked about some of the new technologies coming down the pike, or that are already starting to happen with 4K and wireless HDMI and 3D, but let's talk about something a little more fun. Let's talk a little bit about our own personal experiences. Like, for instance, my good friend Jason just moved to Austin. I think between his kids and my kids, we could put together a basketball team.
My kids are short.
But the point of that is if you know, I want to put this out there. If you haven't seen 4 or 5 8-year-old girls do Dance Dance Revolution with an Xbox 360 Kinect in front of a 100-inch screen, you haven't lived. Let's talk past the movies. The big screen experience is more than just movies now. We've got them in the living room. We're watching TV, video games. What else are you seeing out there past just the movie experience that your customers are talking about?
sports with brighter
That's
projectors.
what we call a slow curveball
Yes.
to the question right there.
Definitely. Now that we have brighter projectors, you don't have to sit in the dark to watch sports. I mean, that's a little creepy, right?
Those aren't pillows.
Well, imagine a bunch of guys sitting around watching the Super Bowl in a dark room drinking beer.
That's just.
I don't think that's not
I'm
happening.
not comfortable with that.
No, I'm not
situation.
either. Now you have the rec room or the multimedia room. You could be shooting pool while you're watching the Super Bowl, drinking your beer,
Yep.
relaxing.
And we'll be doing that at your house, right, this year, Jason?
We absolutely will be doing that. No, it's amazing. I mean, like I said, we have the projectors all of these projectors are much brighter. I mean, the projectors that Epson are putting out now, like I said, 2,400 lumens. I remember we first put out our first projector was like 800 lumens. So it's
Well, back in the day, I mean, 800 lumens, we used to do
That was
handsprings
bright.
over that stuff.
That was bright.
We came in a little later than you guys. But
Oh, okay. we were down in and around the sixes, you know,
Yeah.
600 area.
But yeah, so it's amazing how much brighter they are. They give you the ability to really have a conversation, not more than conversational light, in a room and be able to high-five each other during sports events. I will add one other point on versatility.
There's nothing more awkward than missing the high five in the
You don't want to miss
it.
that.
By
not
a
cool.
foot. you know.
Yeah, exactly,
That's
exactly.
not cool, especially during a Texas game.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But I was going to say that in addition to the multimedia room and the theater room, projectors are really the most versatile products out there. You can't bring your flat panel in near your pool and have a Jaws in the pool movie party. You know what I mean? But you can do that.
I'm not getting in the pool and watching Jaws.
Oh, it's awesome! You gotta try it. You gotta try it. It's really cool, right? Dare everybody to go in the pool with
when Jaws is playing. That's
right,
awesome.
and watch a 100-inch screen Jaws.
Not gonna
I
go.
actually do.
You will need a bigger boat.
Kids.
Yeah, you will need a bigger boat. Yeah.
As Blake was saying, I have lots of kids, and my twin 5-year-olds. They are the most popular kids during Halloween because I project Nightmare Before Christmas on the side of my house. And it's like a Who concert. There's like hordes of children come flocking to my house because it's just cool, So there's no other way to get that kind of experience other than front projection. So it even goes outside of the media.
I agree. In fact, we've had some interesting suggestions over the last couple of years of traveling. One was with the Zero Edge, just to put a camera so it's looking back at the viewer and basically turn the giant screen into a mirror. Thought that was a great idea. But other than, again, just watching TV, watching sports, I can hook a computer up, right?
Yeah.
Anybody heard of that World Wide Web thing? I know it's more of a fad, but the shopping
it's that series
experience.
of tubes, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the shopping experience, going on Amazon and actually being able to read multiple reviews and see your products being shown, I think is a huge benefit of it. And so thinking outside the typical viewing experience, having another great example, again, talking about the kids, Ryan's got 2 twins, our president. When we go over, there's nothing that they enjoy more than seeing themselves on the movie screen. Showing home movies is a little bit different experience.
Yep.
All of us got them. I mean, especially we're walking around with our iPhones. We're all taking movies all the time. Why watch them on a little tiny screen when you can watch it on a really big screen?
It's kind of like reliving those memories.
It really is, yeah. Being immersed in your memories. So that's a great way to, hey, somebody ought to come up with a tagline for that one.
I like that.
I like
They're all writing down.
better trademark
the
that one.
copyright division
I'll
there.
make one other point on this. So we talk about size and how different it is. When you have that big of a screen, you can actually leverage 2 sources at once and actually get something out of it. You talk about the World Wide Web. You can watch football and work on your fantasy football stats, and they're both large screens. We have a split screen capability in ours. And it used to be, picture in picture didn't mean that much because if you had a 50-inch flat panel and then your split screen or your second picture was relatively small and kind of meaningless, we have a 120-inch screen. Those 2 pictures are huge.
Yeah, when you're picturing pictures of 50.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
It's not bad at all.
Not bad at all, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot you can do with.
So there's a lot you can do with 2-piece projection, but let's go ahead and confront the objections. The first objection being, let's get past them. The first 2 is simple. Always have to watch it in a dark room. Obviously with black diamond technology and your brightness of your projectors, that's not the case. So let's just jump past that one. The next one was cost. We've already addressed that. We're actually cheaper than flat panels by quite a bit. Let's talk about, though, where do we see the objections, especially with a mom and dad environment. The mom can be a bit intimidated or not understand the technology and may not want that big black frame in their living room, regardless if it's on a screen or a flat panel TV. What other objections do we need to overcome to make this more of a better proposition to the end user? Let's start with you, Amy.
First off, Blake, why do you got to pick on the mom?
Well, I'll speak for the dad. Yeah, I want that.
I want it too.
I have seen demos where the mom actually says, "I want that."
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Oh,
I should
And-
qualify that. To be fair, what I mean is more of what I mean is not the size of it, it's the aesthetics.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. This is a true example. The frame that has gone around the black diamond screen for its entire existence, the 3.5-inch beveled frame covered in felt, it literally paid for my new house that we moved into a year ago. However, my wife would not let me put that in my family room because it looked like a home theater screen. That's where I was going with the aesthetics of how we present our images, not just the image, but how it's presented is obviously very important. Your projectors have gotten smaller, for instance.
They've gotten smaller and they've definitely gotten sexier too. Both the projectors and the screens are much better looking than they used to be.
They're designed to go in a multi-purpose space. Same thing with your projectors as well, Bill?
Right. No, they're black. They're nice, shiny
Piano
piano
black
black.
finish. Very,
yes,
very
very
attractive.
high gloss. They go very nicely. They complement very nicely with the black diamond. And it's, like I said earlier, it's a plug-and-play situation. But it gets down again to demo, the demonstration. You have to get the mother, or the woman and the man in front of a projector system. And I think 9 times out of 10, they'll close the sale. So dealers, we're trying to get dealers to install projectors more in their showrooms now. And whether they have a Sony Epson, JVC, they have to get people in front of them. That's how they sell them.
It's true.
I think the other great thing that's really come along in recent years is retractable screens. If you have a huge TV, it's always going to be on the wall,
Sure.
whereas if you have a black diamond retractable screen and the projector up on the ceiling.
Now, have you seen one of those?
I have.
They're cool. They're
In the
very
process
cool.
of
honestly.
installing it.
Yeah, Amy's actually putting one in right now. I
Yep.
believe. Yeah.
I've been in many a home that the dealer installer has brought me into where I see that, where they will have a large panel and then screen will come down right in front of it.
But that's changing, and that's and thank you for alluding to that. With our Black Diamond motorized, we're really excited about this product because it does allow us to finally place an image where it should go, not where it has to go. We don't have to put the large piece of glass, the 90-inch diagonal piece of glass above the fireplace. We can drop it in front of the fireplace and then make it disappear. So what we're actually marketing the Black Diamond motorized is the first rollable TV. And keep in mind, and it can be 4K, it can be 1080p, but it can always go away. And that's what we're pretty excited about that.
Especially seeing more projectors going into media rooms or multi-purpose rooms, aesthetically, it's a great solution because when you want it, it's there, and when you don't see it. So.
And I would agree with you on that. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, also alluding back to the aesthetics of the projectors, now you're doing white also.
We have white and black.
And black.
So our
Same thing with.
Well, we tried white and it wasn't a real big hit.
It wasn't a big hit?
Same here.
Same
yeah.
there? Okay. Well, because we're doing white in my living room. We've got black in the theater. So my wife might want to talk to the two of you guys about the white projector case.
Well, you can always take it to the body shop.
Yeah, look at that.
You get
Put a little
anything,
vehicle wrap on there,
That's
right?
right.
I want the Budweiser wrap. You know?
Well, I had a guy who wanted Ferrari red.
I remember that job.
Remember that?
Yeah, I
And
do.
he was so proud of it. The whole room was red. It would drive me crazy, but he liked it. So.
Hey, man, if you're driving a Ferrari, everything ought to be Ferrari red,
that was
right?
his
No
car.
kidding.
So it seems to me that screen technology is somewhat lacked behind the projection technology. Let's touch on that a little bit because we've all been watching screens for quite a long time. Anybody actually, the silver screen to enhance the black levels of black and white movies, right? Then we had gray screens that came back out again when LCD technology started to take over after CRT, and that everybody's seen that that move also.
Yeah, that was a fad for a while.
It was a fad still, but and they were even called high contrast screens when they weren't really improving the contrast at all. They're just making blacks better. Obviously, Black Diamond we're very proud of, but what other technologies are you seeing happening in the screen world that's making two-piece projection more viable to the consumer?
Well, there's also the mini perf, which a lot of people like because they don't want to see
Acoustically
speakers.
transparent. Yeah.
Right, and they want the sound system behind the screen. That's always big. That you still hear about that. However, you lose your contrast because you lose a lot in those perforations. So that's a big one.
That's a great point. And that's actually a great reason why you should always use a professional integrator because they're going to help you have that conversation with yourself where the give and takes are acoustically transparent versus non-acoustically transparent. That's an exciting technology though because obviously, especially when you're in a 3-row theater, it's a great place to put the center channel behind the screen so the guys in the 3rd row and the kids in the front row can actually hear the screen or hear the information coming off of it. High gain screens, obviously you guys are running into those quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Especially with kind of more and more projectors going into the media rooms, where there is some ambient light, the high gain screens have helped tremendously, just improve the picture quality.
And then, of course, there's the ambient light rejecting screen technologies that we're leading the charge on. And that's what but we've talked about a little bit about the ambient light rejection being able to work in the living room, but then it comes back to the aesthetics question. With the Zero Edge and the Black Diamond motorized, we're actually putting something in, I believe, that people can be proud of. And it's not as intimidating as the old style look of screens. Like obviously, the look of the projector, the look of the presentation of the screen is obviously just as important these days as the image. I think we'd all agree on that.
We talked about, you talked about the spouse acceptance factor or the wife acceptance factor, whatever you call it. In my case, my wife is more concerned about aesthetics than I am, and I'm more about size. And definitely the Zero Edge was the thing that made the deal for me, of being able to get the biggest possible screen in a space that she wanted to look cool. And she saw that screen and was completely sold.
And how many compliments do you get from your friends and family?
It's more than just compliments. I think one of the other points that we haven't made enough here is that it's still a unique enough technology, for better or for worse, that you are the Joneses if you have this screen, right? You're not, people are keeping up with you. In my neighborhood, a relatively nice neighborhood, people have nice cars, they have big flat panels, they'll have all kinds of toys. But I am without question the coolest dad on the block. I mean,
Yeah, you
there's
are.
no question, for several reasons that we don't have to get into. No, I'm just kidding. No, but only basically just because I got a super big screen and a projector, and every kid in the block wants to come to my house.
So
to
you're
watch
the
a movie.
babysitting service.
Pretty much, that's the one risk is that people are going to want to come to your house.
That's right.
Well, but on expanding on that, you know, I've noticed in my family, it's not what's on tonight, it's what can we go watch in the theater.
Yeah.
Right, and our theater's not a dedicated theater space, it's an open space, couches, not theater chairs. But we found that what's fun is going back to those 80s movies, you know, 16 Candles, and rewatching those with our kids, which, by the way, you have a very different perspective on the parties that were in those movies.
Oh, yeah, very
when you're the
objectionable
parent now. Thank you, Netflix. So, well, let's touch on the 235 experience again. We have all three of us have a different way of doing 235. All three of you have a different way of doing 235. Epson, you're using the lenses from Panamorph.
Yep.
Both JVC and Sony have the option of doing an anamorphic lens, but also the zoom memory feature.
That's correct.
Regardless of the way it's done, why is it done? Why do we see 235 and two-piece projection and not flat panels? Maybe that's a broader question, but Amy, you want to touch on that subject?
I would love to. So projection is typically associated with movies, and movies very oftentimes are in 235. And so movie lovers don't want to get the black bars at the top of the bottom of their screens. So projection is literally recreating that movie theater experience by having the widescreen, no black bars.
The home cinema experience. if you will.
Exactly.
Yes. That was always one of the big objections with homeowners is why do I have these bars, whether it be top or bottom or side by side. Now it affords the way to fill the screen in 235 with no black bars. So that is a big, big selling point. So whether you use the lens memory with lens shift or an anamorphic lens, because we've dabbled with the anamorphic lenses for years.
Sure,
Yep.
you can do both ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
The lenses are going to maintain full resolution,
Right.
but the zoom memory feature is obviously an easy way to do the 235 experience.
Right.
So there's pluses and minuses to both sides. The lens approach, though, with the Epson, also is a very affordable approach, as well as both of your projectors as well, and depending on which model the user selects. But the 235 experience is what the director is trying to get a larger peripheral view and envelop you more and entice you more into the image or into the movie, if you will.
There's a wow factor to it, and people walk in and see that.
There's another way of saying
ultra-wide
that. They call that wow
look.
factor. Sure.
Yeah,
That was one of the big ones where you actually would have the lens go into place and then you do your vertical stretch and then you would do your horizontal stretch. And it was always, wow.
yeah.
You know, that
because
was
people
always-
they're sitting there, they're watching 16 by 9. I think there's some movies. I think it's there's a Batman. I think it's one of the Dark Knight
Yep.
movies that switches from 16:9 to anamorphic. And when you see that change, it's like it opens up a whole additional world, and people do have that reaction.
You're adding another, depending upon the screen, you're adding another a foot to a foot and a half on either side. You
And
know,
that's
the
how we
image-
see more as peripheral than vertical. Right?
Oh, sure, it's all about peripheral.
I think it's a coolness factor too. I mean, there aren't any TVs that are 235.
That's
So
right.
once again, you're the cool person because you can
That's
have everyone
right.
over,
So you're
watch
the coolest guy in the
movies,
block
and-
again.
See, there
Yeah.
it is.
And if you drove a Mercedes, you'd
Reaffirmed
really
over
be
and
up
over
there.
again.
Well, I want to thank you each and everyone for coming down to see us.
Thanks for
I think this is
inviting
going to be
us.
great for the industry. I think the biggest obstacle still, though, is awareness. And I think these videos are what's going to help you, the consumer, you, the dealer out there, gain more awareness to a re-emerged technology, which is two-piece projection. So again, thanks all for your time.
Thanks.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Blake.
Thank you.